Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely bizarre biological quirk from the animal kingdom. And, well, we're going to use it to uncover a pretty uncomfortable truth about our own modern lives. The author of our source text, Su Fang, kicks things off with this brilliantly simple premise. We come into this world with absolutely nothing, and we leave with nothing. We arrive with clenched fists, and we depart with open hands. It's an undeniable fact of life. So, why on earth are we so completely obsessed with accumulating way more than we could ever possibly need? Well, to figure that out, we actually need to talk about the anxiety of a little creature called the sand rat. Let's start our journey out in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Now, obviously, it's a harsh, totally unforgiving environment, and living out there is the unusually diligent sand rat. Whenever the dry season starts creeping up, these little guys just go into absolute overdrive. I mean, they are working tirelessly day and night, gathering grass roots just to stay alive. But here's where it gets really interesting. Research shows that a single sand rat actually only needs exactly 2 kilograms of grass roots to easily survive the entire dry season. Think about that for a second. Just 2 kilograms. That's the bare biological minimum to make it through. But then you look at the sheer, completely illogical excess of what they actually do out there. Even though they only need those 2 kilograms, they obsessively hoard 10 kilograms of grass roots. That means a staggering 4/5, literally 80% of their frantic, exhausting work is completely unnecessary. They don't need it, they don't need it. And actually, all those extra roots, they eventually just rot right there in their burrows. And the real kicker here is that the rats then have to spend even more energy painstakingly dragging all those decomposed, gross roots back out of their living spaces. It's wild. Now you might be thinking, hey, it's just a funny little biological quirk, right? Well, researchers did this incredible experiment that showed just how deeply ingrained and honestly destructive this obsession really is. They took these sand rats, put them in cages, and gave them an endless supply of food every single day. So their survival? Absolutely guaranteed, zero threat. But without the ability to physically go out, gather grassroots, and pile them up in a burrow, these captive rats started getting overwhelmingly anxious. In fact, they literally died of anxiety just because they couldn't hoard enough to feel secure. They literally had the whole shebang, everything they needed, but the sheer lack of excess is what killed them. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the tragic irony of their whole instinct. See, by obsessively gnawing off every single grassroot they can find just to feel safe right now, they're actively making the desert even more barren. They are destroying the exact vegetation that keeps them alive. In their desperate, frantic attempt to secure their future, they are completely wrecking their long-term chances of survival. I mean, they are quite literally digging their own graves just to chase after excess. So, from our cozy human perspective, it's pretty easy to point at the sand rat and say, wow, what a foolish little animal. I mean, why do 4 times the amount of work just to pile up rotting trash in your own house? But let's hold up a mirror for a second. Let's ask ourselves a really tough question. How exactly are we doing the exact same thing? If the sand rat is crazy for hoarding useless roots, what about us humans? What exactly are the extra grass roots that we are frantically piling up in our own lives? The author actually points out this sand rat mentality is everywhere around us. Take wealthy business people, for example. The text mentions millionaires whose wealth could easily support their families for the rest of their lives. No question. Yet, they're never satisfied, right? They just keep toiling away day after day. Or, get this, consider a 36-year-old vice director of a provincial finance department the author talks about. This guy is in the absolute prime of his life. But completely dissatisfied with a comfortable living, he took bribe after bribe until, surprise, surprise, he gets caught and ends up in prison. He traded his actual freedom for absolute excess. Or just look online. We see people completely consumed by writing endless comments, tirelessly arguing every single topic from science to politics, just totally lost in this obsessive need to be right. When you really look at these individuals, the millionaire who just won't rest, the official who threw away his best years and his freedom, or the commenter losing whole days to pointless internet fights, we're looking at people sacrificing the absolute peak of their existence for completely unnecessary extra grassroots. And it really forces us to stop and ask the author's recurring, resounding question, why bother? I mean, seriously, what is the point of throwing away your precious, finite life for something you absolutely do not need? And here's the crucial point. This excessive accumulation scales up. and it scales up dangerously. Just like the sand rat depletes its own desert, our collective hoarding drains our entire world. As the global population keeps growing and our relative resources naturally dwindle, this intense human desire to hoard extra grass roots only gets stronger. It's this vicious cycle. The author warns that if we don't snap out of this collective sand rat anxiety, our endless hoarding is eventually going to drain global resources entirely. And, well, when the grassroots are totally gone, what's going to happen to us? We've actually seen this exact psychological panic play out collectively before. The author recalls this massive purchasing frenzy back in the early 1980s. People were just absolutely consumed by the fear that if they didn't buy things right that second, things they didn't even need, by the way, they wouldn't be able to get them later or prices would go through the roof. It was basically a pure society-wide manifestation of the sand rat mentality. And it leaves us wondering, as our modern anxieties keep growing, are we doomed to repeat this kind of collective panic over imaginary scarcity? Let's zoom back into the micro level for a second and look at how this builds into what we could call the tomorrow trap. Just like that captive sand rat dying of anxiety in a cage completely full of food, we humans have this terrible habit of ruining a perfectly fine, beautiful present day by dragging the hypothetical burdens of tomorrow into it. And remember, tomorrow hasn't even happened yet. We get so hyper-focused on accumulating for the future that we completely destroy our peace in the right now. To really put this into perspective, consider this real example from the source text. There was this 23-year-old mother who wrote to the author completely and utterly paralyzed by financial anxiety. And her big source of panic? She was terrified about how she was going to earn enough money to pay for her 1-year-old child's college tuition. Just think about that for a second. She is 23 years old, sitting with her infant child, and she is totally ruining her present reality by agonizing over a bill that isn't due for almost 2 whole decades. The author's response to this young mom was firm, but honestly, it is absolutely vital. He just asked her, "Why are you worrying about something so far off? Live for today." And that message just completely cuts right through all that sand rat anxiety. I mean, tomorrow hasn't arrived yet, so why on earth let it ruin you today? Which leads us perfectly into our next section, the timeless antidote, and how we can actually cure this sand rat anxiety. Interestingly enough, the cure here really isn't new at all. The author looks to ancient wisdom, pointing to figures like Jesus, who explicitly taught, "Do not worry about tomorrow." What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? If we map that onto our explainer today, what good is it to gather the entire desert's worth of grassroots if the constant stress and anxiety literally costs you your life? We actually find the exact same antidote deeply rooted in Eastern philosophy, too. The author points out that Buddha teaches us to live in the present moment, to just go with the flow, and to follow the natural course of things. So instead of frantically trying to micromanage and control the future through this endless obsessive accumulation, we're simply instructed to trust the present. But, and here is the catch, and the author is super realistic about this, knowing the way is easy. Actually walking the way and upholding it every single day, that is incredibly hard. We hear these beautiful ancient truths, we nod along, and then what do? We go right back to checking our bank accounts and stressing about where we'll be 10 years from now. But we really have to remember, excess is genuinely dangerous to life. Life is finite, right? If we focus all our energy on hoarding, we miss out on all the beautiful, spontaneous moments. We miss the real chance to elevate and truly experience our lives. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to really chew on as you go about your day. I want you to look at your own daily anxieties, your career goals, all those little things you stress over when you're trying to fall asleep, and ask yourself honestly, are you hoarding extra grassroots? Are you sacrificing the very real, beautiful reality of today for the totally imaginary security of tomorrow? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating text with me. Remember to live in the present, and whatever you do, don't let the anxiety of the sand rat steal your life.